They planned a housewarming party without inviting the owner. After the funeral, I couldn't cry. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because the grief lodged itself so deep it couldn't come out. My parents were gone. One rainy Tuesday morning, a car wreck, a phone call at 9:42 a.m., and that was it. They were on their way to a doctor's appointment. Nothing dramatic, nothing out of the ordinary. Just a slippery highway and a truck that couldn't stop in time. I answered the call with my laptop open, coffee still steaming, ready to run numbers on a multi-unit property I was looking at in Dallas. Instead, the hospital voice on the other end changed everything. I sat there, staring at the kitchen tile, trying to comprehend the words "dead on arrival." I was 33, and my entire framework of existence, Mom's Saturday phone calls, Dad's predictable grilling texts, their presence during every holiday, evaporated. Their will was straightforward. I got the family home and the 2 rental properties they'd kept for decades. Ryan, my younger brother, got the financial assets. He didn't fight it. There was no reason to. I was the one who'd helped Dad with inspections, who had Mom's landlord ledger saved in my cloud. Ryan never liked any of that. He was a designer, logos, UI kits, t-shirt mock-ups. He didn't want to chase down tenants about leaking faucets. And I was fine with that. I handled the transition. I scheduled the estate filings, retitled the properties under my LLC, sorted out the insurance updates, and contacted the tenants to assure them nothing was changing. It was autopilot, a kind of mechanical, grief-fueled efficiency. The house didn't even feel different at first. The same paint colors, the same couch with the dent where Dad always sat. It was like they'd gone out and might still come back. Ryan, on the other hand, started unraveling in slow motion. I didn't see it right away. He texted less. He missed a couple calls. When he did respond, it was surface level. Quick. Distant. Then his landlord called me one afternoon because I was still listed as his emergency contact. He hadn't paid rent in over a month. I didn't call him. I drove straight over. His apartment was a cave. Curtains drawn, food wrappers everywhere, dishes stacked so high I couldn't see the sink. He didn't even look surprised to see me. Said he got laid off. Something about project restructuring. He didn't ask for help, but I offered it anyway. Told him to come home. Move into the family house. I wasn't going to charge him rent. I didn't even think about it. The place was mine now, and it was big enough for both of us. I figured maybe the familiarity would help him reset. At first, it did. He cleaned up, started jogging again, rearranged the living room, and texted me a picture, proud of how he'd made it look more modern. Even fixed the broken doorbell without being asked. He seemed lighter, calmer, like being surrounded by old furniture and family photos anchored him. I let myself believe it. I let myself believe he was healing. I didn't notice when the dishes started piling up again, when the texts got slower, when the groceries stopped being restocked. I ignored the unopened mail gathering dust on the console table. I kept telling myself he just needed time, that he'd bounce back, that things were fine. But even then, some part of me already knew better. It was about 18 months after he moved in when he met her. Allison, a name I started hearing casually at first, peppered into passing conversations like she was just another acquaintance from some coffee shop or co-working space. I remember the first time he brought her up directly. We were in the kitchen, late evening, me going through receipts for a new HVAC install at one of the duplexes, him leaning against the counter sipping something in a chipped mug he'd never bothered to replace. I met someone, he said, like it was nothing, but he couldn't stop smiling. I looked up and gave him a half smile, distracted. That's great, I said without asking for details. He didn't offer them. I should have asked more. I should have paid attention. Within a month, he was talking about her constantly. She was a widow. Used to be married to someone in finance, I think. Or insurance. The story shifted a few times. Her husband had died unexpectedly, something vague involving medication and a bathtub. Ryan insisted she'd been through a lot. Said she was strong, misunderstood, funny once you got to know her. I met her twice before they got married. Once at a diner near campus where she spent the whole lunch talking about veganism and reclaiming feminine energy, and once in the living room of the house, where she seemed more interested in the old furniture than in making actual conversation. She moved in 2 weeks after the courthouse wedding. No warning, no conversation. One day the house was quiet, still our house, and the next her perfume hung in the hallways and her shoes were lined up by the door. He hadn't told her it was mine. I found out by accident. I came by on a Saturday afternoon to pick up a box of financial records from the office upstairs, my office, the one with Dad's old desk, and she opened the door in bare feet and an oversized sweater and said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize Ryan's sister had a key to our place." Our place. I stood there, frozen, keys still in hand, wondering what version of reality she'd been sold. I didn't correct her. Not then. Just smiled and said I'd be quick. When I confronted Ryan about it later, low voice, corner of the backyard, out of earshot. He just rubbed his face and mumbled something about how it didn't matter. That she was happy. That he didn't want to complicate things. She thinks it's yours, I said, barely able to contain the disbelief. She thinks this house is yours. He didn't look at me. Yeah, he said eventually. I didn't correct her. I waited for the apology, for the explanation, for something. But he just kept staring at the grass like it had answers. It only got worse after that. Allison started refreshing things. That's what she called it. Refreshing. Like the house was a browser tab that needed updating. She didn't ask before she cleared out the curio cabinet in the hallway. Mom's porcelain birds, gone. She didn't hesitate before throwing out the wooden high chair from the attic, the one Dad made for Ryan when he was a toddler. It had been there for years. She said it was clutter. Unhygienic. She sold the old grandfather clock without even telling me. Said it didn't fit the aesthetic. Said it creeped her out. Ryan said nothing. He stood there, hands in his pockets, watching her box up heirlooms like they were garage sale leftovers. I wanted to scream, to rip open the closets and rescue what was left. But I didn't, because I kept thinking, he's been through enough. He's finally functioning again. He finally smiles in photographs. But the price of his happiness was being paid in pieces of our parents' lives. In the dented cookie tin Mom used for sewing kits. In the quilt Grandma stitched by hand during chemo. In the house itself, our house, slowly being repainted into someone else's story. He let her. Every decision she made, every piece of the past she erased, he let her. Because she made him feel alive. Because he said she saved him. But as far as I could tell, the only thing she was saving was space for herself. And the house, my house, the one they died before they could say goodbye to, was disappearing room by room. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not the warm, familiar scent of old wood and cinnamon and floor polish that had always lingered in that entryway. No, this was synthetic. Something floral and sharp, like a plug-in diffuser was being murdered in every outlet. I barely had the door closed behind me when the second wave hit. Visual this time. The hallway was stripped. Not just decluttered, stripped. The paintings that had hung there since I was 10 were gone. Mom's shadow box with the pressed lilacs she dried after Grandma's funeral, gone. The rug was new. Cold. Something gray and soulless that looked like it belonged in a bank lobby, not a home. I stopped just past the threshold, my fingers brushing against the wall where the dent used to be from when Ryan crashed into it with his toy sword when we were kids. Now the wall was smooth. Repainted. Refinished. Sanitized. I walked in, slow, trying not to let the weight in my chest show on my face. The living room was worse. Unrecognizable. The couch, the one Dad reupholstered himself, the one with the spring that always poked you on the left side, was gone, replaced by some beige, boxy monstrosity that looked like it had been ordered from a catalog called Modern Bland. The coffee table, the heavy walnut one with the hidden drawer that still held old TV remotes and faded coasters, was gone too. In its place stood a glass-topped table with metal legs, too fragile-looking, too sterile. I turned in place, trying to make sense of the space. The walls were bare. No family photos. No knickknacks. No sign that we had ever lived here. It looked staged. Like a model home waiting for fake buyers. Allison emerged from the kitchen holding a glass of wine like she was hosting a dinner party, not standing in the ruins of my childhood. She smiled, wide, rehearsed. Madison, I'm so glad you made it. Come in. We're just getting things plated. I wanted to ask her where the sideboard was. The one that used to sit against the dining room wall, with the scratches on the left side from when I tried to move it myself as a teenager. I wanted to ask her where the bookshelf went, the tall one Dad built by hand. The one where we kept our yearbooks and photo albums, and every one of Mom's old paperbacks. I walked past the dining room and stopped dead. The table. That table wasn't ours. It was new, sleek, hollow. Ours was gone. The big oak table where we carved pumpkins and signed birthday cards and spilled Thanksgiving gravy. You changed the table, I said quietly, more to myself than to anyone. Allison didn't miss a beat. It was time, she said breezily. That old one was so scratched up, and honestly, it just didn't fit the aesthetic we're going for. I looked at Ryan. He was already seated, staring at his plate like the mashed potatoes held the meaning of life. He didn't say a word, didn't look up. I felt heat crawling up the back of my neck. A lot's different, I said, stepping slowly toward the kitchen, my voice neutral. Too neutral. Where's Mom's china hutch? Allison sipped her wine. Oh, that thing. We donated it. It was taking up way too much space. Besides, the doors didn't even close properly anymore. My hands clenched. I couldn't stop them. Some of those pieces were. She cut me off. I know. Sentimental. But we're trying to build a home that reflects who we are now, not who someone else was before. I stared at her. At the cold clarity in her voice. At the way she said someone else like Mom wasn't real, like she was just a placeholder in a house that Allison now claimed piece by piece. I turned to Ryan again, waiting for him to step in, to say anything. He shifted in his chair, but didn't lift his eyes. "Ryan," I said, not raising my voice, but steady, firm. "Do you know where the blue quilt is? The one from the den." He rubbed his forehead like I'd asked him a math problem. "I think she said it was musty," he mumbled. "We took some stuff to Goodwill last week." I couldn't breathe. That quilt had been in our family for 3 generations. Stitched by hand. I stood there, numb, while Allison glided around the kitchen, humming softly, as if she hadn't just erased 30 years of family history in a single weekend. "We just don't believe in holding on to the past," she said suddenly, turning toward me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's important to create space for the future." I looked around the room. There was no space. Just absence. Just ghosts. And Ryan, my brother, who once cried when we accidentally broke the arm off Dad's recliner, sat there and let her burn it all down. Not with fire, but with paint swatches, donation bins, and a relentless hunger to make everything hers. I stood there for another long moment, then sat down, slowly, trying to remember what the room used to look like, trying to hold on to the shape of it in my memory before it disappeared completely. The first time she told me I couldn't use my own key, it felt like a joke. One of those passive-aggressive quips people make when they want to set a boundary without sounding like they're setting a boundary. I had stopped by on a Thursday afternoon to drop off a binder of paperwork for the property taxes, something Ryan should have been handling by now, but wasn't, and let myself in like I always had. Allison was in the kitchen, her hands in rubber gloves, rinsing something that looked expensive and unnecessary. She didn't say hi, didn't ask how I was, just turned her head slightly and said, "You know, it'd be great if you rang the doorbell next time." I laughed, confused, thinking she was being playful. "You're serious?" She peeled off one glove with the kind of deliberateness that made my stomach tighten. "It's just boundaries, Madison. I mean, we're trying to maintain a little privacy, and it's not really appropriate for people to just walk into someone else's home unannounced." Someone else's home. I didn't answer. I left the binder on the counter, said something clipped and polite, and walked out. The key felt heavier in my pocket after that, like it had lost all its meaning. The next time I tried to use it, the lock had been changed. No warning. No text. Just a deadbolt that didn't match my key anymore. I stood on the porch like a solicitor while the new curtains fluttered behind the glass. It didn't stop there. She started locking the office. My father's office. The one room I had left alone after everything else had changed. The one space where his handwriting still lingered on calendars and the filing cabinet still rattled with receipts and warranty slips. I'd gone in to look for something. An old photo I wanted to scan, and the door wouldn't budge. Later, when I asked about it, she shrugged and said, "We're repurposing that space. I think it's important to make it more functional." Functional. As if history needs a spreadsheet. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. But I started showing up more. Lingering longer. I went through the garage one afternoon when she was out and found one of Mom's boxes half open, ceramic figurines wrapped in yellowing newspaper, the handwritten tags still dangling from their necks. 2 days later, they were gone. That night, I went home, opened my laptop, and started searching eBay. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I found it. Or rather, them. 4 of the figurines. Listed under a user account with no profile picture and a mailing address in our zip code. The photo was unmistakable. They were sitting on the same table that used to be in the foyer, now relocated for product staging. I scrolled through the seller's listings, more of our things. The brass mirror from the upstairs hall. The hand-painted mixing bowls Mom brought back from Santa Fe. Even the wooden baby rattle that had been in the family for generations. I called Ryan. He didn't pick up. I drove over. She answered the door, and this time, she didn't even bother pretending to be polite. Just stood there, smug, one hand on her hip, like she was waiting for me to make a scene. I didn't. I just asked for Ryan. She told me he was resting. When I tried to step past her, she blocked the doorway. "This isn't your space anymore, Madison. You need to respect that." "This house is mine," I said quietly. She smiled. "Not according to Ryan." I stood there for a moment, the word betrayal clawing at my throat. I didn't say another word. I turned and left, called Ryan again, and this time he answered, voice low, tired. "I saw the listings," I said. He didn't ask what I meant. He knew. "She's selling our things, Ryan. She's selling our mothers." "I know," he said. "I know. Just, can you give me time? I'll fix it. I just need time." "You changed the locks." "I didn't want to." She said. He stopped, sighed. "I'll talk to her. I promise." "You should have told her the truth from the beginning," I said. "You should have told her whose house this is." There was silence on the other end. "I didn't think it would matter," he finally said. I thought we were building something. Not if it's built on a lie." I hung up before he could answer. Sat there in my car outside a house that was mine on paper, but nowhere else. Every light that flickered on behind the curtains felt like a theft. Every item sold a little piece of memory stripped away and boxed up for strangers. And he, my brother, was letting it happen, one silence at a time. It was Sunday. I'd spent the morning baking. Not out of nostalgia or love or any of that romanticized crap people write in cards, but out of strategy. A peace offering. A gesture. Something that couldn't be spun as aggressive or threatening. Just a pie. Homemade, double crust, apple with a little cinnamon and nutmeg, the way Mom used to make it. I didn't call ahead. I didn't text. I drove there in silence, the pie warm on the passenger seat, the deed to the house folded in my bag. When I pulled up, the house looked the same as it had the last few months, perfect from a distance. The lawn trimmed, the hedges sculpted into soulless symmetry, a front porch too clean to feel real. I took a breath, stepped out, walked up the path slowly, and rang the doorbell. It was Allison who opened the door, of course. Her face changed the moment she saw me. Not surprised, not curious, just that tight-lipped disgust she saved for things she couldn't control. I held up the pie. Thought I'd stop by, I said evenly. No drama. Just wanted to share something. She didn't even look at the pie, just crossed her arms. You need to leave. I shifted my grip slightly, the foil warm against my fingers. Ryan here. Doesn't matter, she snapped. You're trespassing. I'm not. You are. I didn't move. Neither did she. The standoff stretched, thick with old tension. Then she reached for her phone. I saw it coming before she even said the words. I'm calling the police. I laughed, not out of humor, but because of how absurd it all felt. You're really going to call the cops on me? For showing up at my own house with a pie? Her voice rose. This is not your house. You're obsessed. You don't live here, you have no right to be here, and I've had enough of your stalking behavior. Leave. Now. She dialed. I stood there while she gave them the address, her voice urgent, dramatic. Yes, right now? She's back again. Refuses to leave. She's harassing us. Yes, I'm safe. But she's unstable. Please hurry. She ended the call and turned to me with a triumphant look. They'll be here in 5 minutes. Maybe this time, you'll finally get the message. I brought the deed, I said, calm as glass. Title, mortgage, tax history. All of it. Her smirk faltered. I'm the legal owner of this house. It's in my name. Always has been. Ryan said. I don't care what Ryan said. I cut in. The county doesn't either. She tried to snatch the pie out of my hand, like that would somehow restore the upper hand, and I stepped back, still holding it, still watching her unravel in real time. The door slammed in my face. I heard her pacing, fast, panicked. 10 minutes later, the patrol car pulled up. I walked to meet them at the sidewalk. Calm. Ready. When they asked what was going on, I handed them the documents. I own this house, I said. She lives here. My brother lives here. But legally, this is mine. They've locked me out. Changed the locks. Refused me access. Today, she called you because I brought over a pie. They took the papers, flipped through them slowly, asked a few questions, confirmed the property record on their computer. It didn't take long. One officer knocked. Allison opened the door half an inch, shrill and shaking. She's dangerous, I heard her say. She's trying to push me out. She's been harassing us for months. No, ma'am, the officer said plainly. She owns the property. Everything checks out. If you're having a domestic dispute, that's a civil issue, but legally she's within her rights to be here. That's when the screaming started. She pushed the door open, red-faced, hair wild, voice splintering with every word. She's manipulating everything. She's lying. She's trying to ruin our life. Ryan, tell them. Tell them the truth. He was standing behind her, frozen, pale, like he'd just walked into a different timeline. The officer asked him directly, Sir, are you the homeowner? Ryan didn't answer. Sir, still nothing. All right, the officer said. We've confirmed the documentation. Unless there's an active court order, she's free to be here. Allison spun, furious. You let her come in here and humiliate me? You let her come into our home. It's not our home, Ryan said finally, voice low. Cracked. It's hers. She stared at him. For one long, awful second, her face didn't move. Then she screamed, loud, raw, no words, just sound, and stormed up the stairs. The officer handed me back the papers. If you want to pursue a formal eviction or legal boundaries, you'll need to go through the courts. But today, you're clean. I nodded. Thank you. I didn't go inside. I stood on the porch with the pie still in my hands, watching the front door swing quietly shut behind chaos. The silence afterward wasn't peaceful. It was something else. Something older. Something hollowed out. But at least, for once, it was honest. He didn't come to me right away. I think he stayed upstairs for an hour, maybe two, pacing the hallway like it might offer him a script or a way out. I sat in the living room, The pie untouched on the counter, documents still spread across the coffee table like evidence in a trial that had already ended. The house was too quiet. The kind of silence that comes after a storm, when the trees are still dripping and the ground hasn't realized it's supposed to dry. When he finally came down, he didn't sit. He just stood there, hands shoved in his pockets, eyes darting around the room like he couldn't land on anything. "I didn't lie," he said, and the words fell flat the second they left his mouth. I didn't answer. He shifted his weight, voice lower. "I just didn't correct her. At the beginning. I didn't say anything when she assumed. I thought it didn't matter. I thought we'd figure it out eventually." "That's not the same as telling the truth," I said. He rubbed his face like he was trying to wipe off the guilt. "I didn't think it would get this far. I didn't think she'd change everything. I thought it was temporary, that she just needed stability. I thought if I could make her feel secure, maybe I wouldn't lose her. And now," he exhaled, long and broken, "now she's threatening to sue." I almost laughed. "Sue for what? She doesn't own a damn thing in this house. She says I misled her. Says she was building a life based on lies." His voice cracked, and for a moment, he looked like he did the day of the funeral. Small, hollowed out. "She's right. About that." I didn't say anything. Let him sit with it. "She's furious," he went on. "Humiliated. Says I embarrassed her in front of the police. In front of you. Said I made her look like a fool." He paused. "She left last night. Packed a bag. Slammed the door. Said she's going to talk to a lawyer and come back with a plan. She can come back with whoever she wants." I said. "But she's not walking into this house like she owns it again." He nodded, slow. "Quiet. I know. Do you?" He looked up, finally meeting my eyes. And I saw it. Underneath the mess, the cowardice, the half-truths and silence. I saw the boy who used to cry when he lost his favorite pencil, the teenager who hugged me too hard when Dad yelled, the man who spiraled when we buried both of them in the same week. He nodded again, this time more certain. "Yeah, I do. The damage was done. The past couldn't be unsaid or unsold. But the story had shifted. The truth was on paper. The house, this house, had a name on it. Mine. And no matter what storm Allison brought back with her, that was something she couldn't change. Not with a lawyer. Not with a tantrum. Not with 1,000 pieces of overpriced furniture and a new paint job. Ryan had built his little world on a mission. And now it was crumbling, one consequence at a time. It was a few nights later. The house was still. No doors slamming. No scented candles burning their fake citrus into the walls. Just silence, thick and uncertain. I was sitting on the porch, legs tucked under me, the air cool enough to keep the mosquitoes away. He came out quietly, didn't say anything at first, just lowered himself onto the step beside me like we were kids again, hiding from Mom after breaking a lamp. We sat like that for a while, not talking, the kind of silence that isn't awkward but necessary. Eventually, I said it. "You know she isolated you, right?" He didn't respond, but I could feel the shift in his breathing. "She didn't want your friends around. She didn't want me around. She made it so small in here you couldn't even see it happening. Still nothing. She chipped away at you until you didn't even recognize what was yours and what wasn't. You let her. But she knew what she was doing." His voice, when it came, was hoarse. "She didn't like my friends. Said they were immature. Said they'd hold me back. You stopped answering their calls." "I know." He rubbed his palms together, skin dry and cracked. "She said they didn't understand us. That they were jealous, or toxic, or just distractions." I believed her. "Why?" He shook his head slowly. "Because it felt good to be needed. To be the one someone built a world around. Even if that world was fake. Even if she controlled every inch of it. I thought she was saving me. From myself. From how lost I was. And what did she save you from exactly?" He didn't answer that. I looked at him. Really looked. The tired face, the slump in his shoulders, the hesitation that wasn't always there. "She made you lie. Not just to me. To yourself. She made you think you needed to shrink to fit her version of a man." "I lost myself," he said, barely above a whisper. I didn't see it at first. But after a while, I couldn't do anything right. She corrected how I spoke. How I dressed. What I ate. What I watched. She said she was refining me. That I was lucky. That most people don't get a partner who wants to elevate them. I scoffed. He half laughed, a bitter sound. "She started handling my emails. She changed my passwords. Said she was organizing. Said she was helping. She took over my finances. Said I was too distracted. I let her. I told myself it was fine. That I needed help. But she was the one who made me feel like I couldn't do it on my own. She didn't love you. She managed you." He winced like the words had sharp edges. "I kept thinking," he said after a long pause, "if I just kept her happy, she'd stop being angry. If I just gave her what she wanted, she'd stop questioning everything I did. But it never stopped. It was never enough. And I couldn't admit that out loud because then I'd have to admit I was stuck." "You weren't stuck," I said. "You were trapped." He nodded slowly. It was toxic. The whole thing. She hollowed me out and called it love. We sat in silence again, the kind that comes after confession. And for the first time in a long time, I saw my brother. Not the echo he'd become under her weight, but the real him, battered and bent, but still there. Still mine. He didn't leave the house when she left. Not this time. No packed bag, no disappearing into someone else's apartment or running off to a quiet hotel to think. He stayed. And for the first time in years, it felt like he was really there. He didn't hide behind excuses or low-voiced apologies. He stood with me in the silence she'd left behind and asked, "Where do we start?" The first thing we did was open every door. All the locked ones. All the rooms that had been off-limits or repurposed into some cold version of her aesthetic. The office was still how I remembered, mostly. The desk was still there, covered in a light layer of dust, and so were Dad's notebooks, stacked neatly like someone had just stepped out for lunch. I pulled the curtains open. Ryan stood behind me, hands in his pockets again, but he didn't look away. Then we tackled the storage room in the basement. The one I hadn't had the nerve to enter since everything exploded. It took us a while just to clear a path. She'd crammed it full of things. Our things, shoved behind plastic bins and layered under useless decor she hadn't managed to sell yet. It was like digging through a time capsule sealed in resentment. But we pulled everything out. Every box, every frame, every object she'd labeled as clutter. I found the quilt. He found the framed class photo from second grade, the one where we both looked sunburnt and annoyed. We found Mom's cookbooks, all annotated with her strange shorthand. I sat on the concrete floor and cried when we uncovered Dad's old clock radio, the one he used to blast music from on weekend mornings while cleaning the garage. We brought it all back upstairs, one piece at a time. Not all of it went back exactly where it had been. Some of it we had to clean, some we didn't keep, but every piece we chose to restore became its own small ceremony. Every time we set something back in place, I watched a little more of him return. He stopped flinching when I opened a door. He stopped apologizing before speaking. He even started sleeping better. We painted the living room ourselves. He picked the color, something warm, not trendy. The beige couch was the first thing to go. I didn't even try to sell it. We dragged it to the curb in silence, and neither of us looked back when the garbage truck crushed it the next morning. We made mistakes. He hung 2 frames crooked and argued that it added character. I let him win. I scorched the lasagna one night, and he said it tasted like high school. We laughed until we cried, and then we cried without laughing. There were nights where he got quiet again, and I could see him turning inward. But he let me sit with him, didn't push me away, and that mattered. We started going to therapy, separate at first, then together. The sessions were messy, uncomfortable, and full of things we should have said years ago. But we said them. He talked about feeling like a failure after the funeral, about needing someone to need him so badly he ignored every warning sign. I talked about the rage, the helplessness, the betrayal of watching him hand our parents' legacy to a stranger piece by piece. There were no magical resolutions, no sudden transformations, but every appointment stripped a little more of the silence between us. Every word made it easier to breathe. The house started to feel like a home again. Not a shrine, not a battleground, just ours. Sometimes we'd sit in the living room with the windows open, the wind moving through the curtains like it used to when we were kids. And I'd catch him looking around, taking it all in, not with regret, but with something closer to peace. We didn't fix everything, but we found a way back. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. It happened on a Wednesday night, the kind of middle-of-the-week calm where the house felt settled again, finally steady. We'd made pasta, something simple, and we're halfway through an old movie we both half remembered from childhood. The windows were open. The smell of garlic still hung in the air. It had been a good day. One of those rare, quiet ones where no one cried, or argued, or dredged up the past. And then the alarm went off. At first it was just the sound, the high-pitched shriek of something not right. Then came the crash, glass shattering from the back of the house. I was already on my feet, phone in hand, heart thudding hard and stupid. Ryan stood there frozen for half a beat before bolting for the hallway. She didn't even wear a mask. Allison came through the sunroom like a storm, a metal rod in one hand, hair wild, face twisted with something too far gone to name. She went straight for the shelf in the dining room, the one we'd just reset with Mom's pottery and the wedding photos they thought were lost. She knocked everything off in one sweep, pieces smashing to the floor like percussion. Then she turned on the cabinets, screaming something neither of us could understand. We didn't try to stop her. We didn't have to. The cameras caught everything. After the restraining order was filed, I installed them myself. Motion activated, full audio, cloud backup. She knew about them. She just didn't care. Or maybe she didn't believe we'd ever actually use them against her. Maybe she still thought she could spin it into another misunderstanding, another emotional episode. Another moment Ryan would clean up and quietly forget. But this time, we didn't clean it up. The police came fast. The alarm had already triggered a dispatch, and I'd hit the panic button from my phone the second I heard her voice. When they pulled her out of the house, she was still yelling about betrayal, about injustice, about how we ruined her life. The officers didn't say much. They had everything they needed. The footage was clear. The court order was current. The damage was significant enough to move quickly. The glass was still on the floor when the detective called us the next morning. Turns out, Allison had been lying long before us. Her husband, the one she called her late soulmate, was very much alive and very much estranged. There were no death certificates, no medical tragedy, just a separation, sealed by her own violent outbursts and a history of manipulation that stretched across 3 states. There were records, misdemeanors for fraud, a drop case involving stolen credit cards, a restraining order filed by an ex in Nevada, even a false identity claim from her early 20s. Ryan listened to all of it with his hands folded in his lap, eyes fixed on the floor. He didn't ask questions. He didn't deny it. When the detective hung up, he just stood up, walked into the kitchen, and quietly poured himself a glass of water. The divorce papers were signed the same week. He didn't make a speech, didn't rant or pace or spiral. He just filed them, served them through the lawyer, and waited. The only thing he said, later, sitting beside me on the back steps while the new window was being installed, was this: "She never loved me. She just needed a place to hide." And this time, he wasn't the one doing the hiding. 6 months passed, slow and quiet, like sunlight moving across a room. Ryan went back to work, not with fanfare or some triumphant announcement, just one small step after another. He took a freelance job first, then another, and eventually found a part-time position that didn't scare him. He rented a small apartment a few neighborhoods away, one with creaky floors and bad lighting. But it was his, and for the first time in years, I saw him claim something on his own terms. We painted his new place together. He picked the color again. Still warm, still soft, but this time a little braver. The house, our house, settled too. We finished restoring what we could, replacing what we couldn't, letting go of what no longer fit without guilt. It stopped feeling like a museum and started feeling like a home again. I kept the old photos out, the ones with bad haircuts and too many shadows, and I bought new frames for them. We hosted dinners, small ones, and talked about Dad without flinching, about Mom without crying every time. I didn't watch the door anymore. I stopped waiting for the sound of glass shattering or voices rising. The quiet stayed soft. We created the trust in early spring. A joint ownership document, clean and simple. His name beside mine. Not because I had to, because I chose to. Because after everything, after all the pain and the silence and the mess, we were still what was left. Not perfect, but permanent. The house belonged to us again. Not just in title, in spirit, in history, in blood. I stood in the kitchen the day the papers were finalized, the same spot where our mother used to make tea, and I felt something settle in me, like a door that had been swinging for years finally clicked shut. I had defended what mattered. I had protected the house they built, the family they raised, the pieces of ourselves we almost lost. I had stood my ground, and I hadn't done it for the bricks or the mortgage or the deed. I did it because some things are worth keeping. Some things don't get to be rewritten by strangers. This was our beginning and our ending, and everything in between. It was never about the house. It was about what it held. So what would you have done? What do you think someone owes to the places that made them? Where do you draw the line between protecting history and letting go of the past? I'm curious. Tell me. I want to know what you think.